Welcome to the 100 TV, back with another live here on YouTube. Again, shout out to the TikTok universe, everybody that's been following us over here. If you're liking the content, make sure that you hit that notification bell as well as subscribe and tell a friend to tell a friend. Today, we're here with Tiff. What's unique about my host or my guest host today is the fact that she was the first person to reach out have me on her podcast, which she's going to talk a little bit about here today as well. I already gave up your name, but can you introduce yourself to the world firsthand, please, ma'am?
Yes. My name is Tiffany. Like you said, I do have a podcast called Talking Prison with Tiff. It's on Apple Podcasts and also on YouTube. Yeah, that's who I am.
All right, so I want to get right into it, right? So the first time you reached out, I was like, okay, cool, awesome opportunity. I get to tell my story. Never did it before. But who is this young lady? What's the motivation behind the podcast? We talked a little bit before we hopped up here. If you don't mind sharing, you spoke on basically you had a parent that was incarcerated.
Yeah, my dad. I was born in 1995, is what I say, and my dad went to prison literally 1 month after I was born. I was born in August 1995, and September 1995, he went to prison, and he got out 2019, I believe. So, yeah, definitely had a parent, in prison. My mom raised me by herself, and it was definitely hard trying to keep in contact. He did definitely try his best, but it was, definitely it's no comparison, to the contact me and my mom had.
Right. So I want to ask a couple questions if you don't mind me asking. Because a lot of people are dealing with, a parent that's incarcerated, a loved one that's incarcerated, period. When you were growing up, um, were you able to see him? Did you go to visit, or was it just letters, phone calls? What was that part of the relationship like?
So I was actually born in Baltimore, Maryland. My dad, my mom, born in Baltimore, Maryland. Both sides of the family, should I say? And so my mom actually moved us to Georgia when I was about 2.5, 3 years old. And so I actually never went and visited him, or never went and visit him in prison at all.
Wow.
So it
Okay.
was only letters that he wrote. I never wrote any letters, not because I didn't want to write letters, but I was, a child and then a teenager, and then that's just not something I
It's a
was
lot.
thinking about doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a lot, definitely. Um, so fast forward, you said he came home in 2019.
Right.
How are things now as far as communication and stuff like that?
Things are good as far as communication. He still lives in Baltimore, Maryland, and I still live in Georgia. So it's just phone calls and FaceTimes. And I definitely go and visit, once a year or something like that. I try to at least.
That's what's up. That's what's up. So let me ask you this. I wanna go into and thank you for sharing, because a lot of people are going through that. I think sometimes it helps when they hear somebody's perspective. Um, but I want to get into the podcast thing. One of the things you said, and I don't know if it directly correlates to the point of the podcast, but you were like, "Hey, I'm just one of the people that like watching prison stuff, gory." Um, and like over the past 3, 4, 5 years, though, these prison podcasts, different like prison content has started to blow up. What do you think is the reason behind that? You think it because everybody hasn't had somebody that was incarcerated. I don't even know if that's why you like the prison gore stuff, if they're even connected. But what's the reason behind that?
I think the fascination is people, or I guess what I could say for myself, never having been in prison and knowing that it is a world within a world. Um, for me, I went to basic training literally for 2 months. I did not join the army or the military. I like kind of tried out, I guess.
Okay.
But I say that to say I experienced a world within a world. And so like I understand like being cut off, like basically cut off from civilization, like it's literally a world within a world. I guess that's the only way I can describe it. And so, like I said, never having been in prison, the fascination is just, there with there's rules, but there's it's like a world with no rules, like chaos, if you will. Natural people's natural, I guess, how people would naturally act if they had the chance. And it just interests me, the things people do, the situations people get themselves in, or things like that.
I would say one of the things that just stuck out. I'm ex-military. I'm a vet. I went to the Air Force. Went to basic training. I spoke a little bit about that on your podcast. Military basic training, hands down, prepared me for prison. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's weird you not being me being on both sides of those coins. You not only being on one. Yeah, because you kind of figure out when somebody's telling you what to do and when to get up, and you got to get all these things, and you don't really have control of your life. That's what prison is. You
Mm.
One's a choice. One you're signing up for. Well, I guess both you're signing up for in a different way. But so I just want so you got this podcast now, right? Talking Prison with Tiff. You've had different guests up there. Who are some of the guests that you've had up there?
So, of course, I had you on the podcast. I had Eric Willis, also known as 16 to Life on YouTube. I also had Julius Hall, a former, I was about to say prison officer, a former police officer, actually, who ended up being a inmate at one point in his life.
That's crazy. Any, and I'm gonna take myself out the equation just because I'm intrigued by everybody's story, and that's what we do up here. We tell the stories of others. It's not always just mine. Out of the guests that were up there, and one of them you just said was a former police officer, but which is a crazy story. I was gonna ask you, is there one story that stuck out more than others, or is there
Yeah,
one?
that would be the one.
Yeah, that's crazy. What? How much time did he end up doing? And you don't got to
uh,
you give the spoiler alert and then tell everybody follow you so they can rest.
yeah, he did 22 years in prison. Um, yeah, he was a former police officer, and he ended up finding some drugs in his home. And instead of turning the people in, he was basically like, I know how we can make
Wow.
this money. Let's make this money.
He had to survive being an ex police officer. Yeah.
But
Lot.
because of the fact that he's not a bad police officer, like he
Mhm.
was not prone on locking people up. He was not, you know, he wasn't, one of those
Yeah,
guys. He had an okay time. He was like, had he been, one of those guys, it definitely would have been a different situation for him.
definitely. Definitely. And ironically enough, one of the guests is getting ready get up here is ex sheriff buddy of mine. Hey, and it is what it is. So
Hmm.
salute to anybody. Crazy story, man. Again, if you want to hear more stories, check out her podcast here on YouTube with Talking with Tiff or Talking Prison with Tiff. Um,
Hmm.
but I want to get a little bit more into that. You said at first you wanted your podcast to be like the prison stories that stuff that really intrigued you and wanted you to start. But what did it evolve into? Because you kind of said it went a different way a little bit.
Right. Um, so right. I wanted the podcast to be people coming on telling their stories or telling stories of things that they've seen.
Mhm.
Um, and it just kind of evolved into people just telling their story, just telling, how they ended up in that situation. You know what I mean? Things that they seen, things they remember before going, different things like that.
I think that's dope though, because a lot of times platforms like that don't exist, like yours, and people don't understand. Got these men and women that are coming home from prison. There's layers. Everybody's not just this animal or one way or that. Don't get me wrong. There's bad people in this world, but some people, they made a bad choice. They learned from it, and they're here. So salute to you for that.
Hmm.
Um,
Thank you.
as I want to ask this, you just looking at incarceration now, prison in America, right? You got a podcast. You spoke about your father being incarcerated growing up, so you've been impacted, immediately up front on some levels. Um, how do you see the judicial system? How do you see the justice system? What's your interpretation as somebody that's never been incarcerated? How do you see prison? Do you see it more of a helper or a hindrance to society? How do you see it?
Um, well, I do want to start by saying society makes prison seem like this dungeon where we throw all the bad people, and that anybody that's ever been to prison or anybody that's in prison is, this horrible, gruesome, bad person. And so, of course, at one point I did see it like that.
Hmm.
But once I started to listen to the prison stories, and, even though some of the, prison stories are kind of gruesome, or not really gruesome, but you may hear them and say, well, that don't really make sense. Why would you do that? Like I
Hmm.
said, I kind of understand the world within a world. So I understand like the rules of the world within a world, if that makes sense.
It does.
Um, and so I don't even know why I went off on that tangent. Your original question was, how
I
do I see the justice system? Oh, okay. So basically, I was just saying that um, they make you kind of want to look at the justice system as if it's just doing this heroic thing because it's just putting all these bad people away. But that's just definitely not the case. Now that I'm listening to the prison stories, I'm seeing that there's profit behind these things. One of the people that I like to listen to is Banky Pound, and he talks about how some of these places they put prisons there because there's no work there, there's no money in the town, and so they have to fill these prisons up to keep them there. And so they're saying people, maybe they may be saying people are doing things that they're not necessarily doing to get in these places, and it's just a very tricky system.
it's complex. Let me tell you this, right? Growing up from where I'm from, I live in Georgia as well. I'm in Atlanta. A lot of the my partners, unfortunately, I don't really know anybody that has not been to at least jail. Let me start there, right? So for me to have this conversation with somebody that's never been on that side of the wall, and not even seen a glimpse, but know what's going on, that's that's a good thing. Um, Banky Pound hit on a great point. Most prisons are in rural areas. Most prisoners get sent away from their family. Everything's money design. Everything's a money scheme when you look at it. Prison for profit. There's prison industries where you got prisoners getting paid 27 cents, and they're doing work that's being contracted out to colleges and police. I remember I was working for the embroidery department, and I was printing up. My job was printing up college decals for Radford University, JMU, all this. I'm getting paid at the time a good paying job in prison. I think I'm getting paid 62 cents an hour, so I could buy two ramen noodles. And no, that's basically it. But that job, that though, each patch that they're sending out, I guarantee it. They're sent. It's a contract. It's money.
First
Everything.
of all, those cost $65 a year at my school.
I had no $65, and I'm getting 62.
$65 a year
Yeah.
per
So,
student. And then also, I do remember the twin bed that we sleep on in the college dorms. It said made by Georgia Department of Correction.
oh yeah, there's there's plenty of. I was locked up in Virginia, but I'm trying to think. There was a recycling unit there that was ran by prisoners. There was a clothing warehouse or sewing factory where they would make different types of garments, sweatshop. Um, there was a couple. I mean, it's just what it is. Prison industry, prison labor is big business. When you start looking at the names behind the investors and stuff like that, it gets deep. But I don't know. Maybe that's another layer for the podcast. I don't know.
I don't understand, why do they pay y'all, not y'all, but pay inmates so little. It's not like the money is not being recycled back into the prison. You know what I mean? It's just like they want you to. My theory is they want you to be hustling. They want you to be doing illegal stuff. They want you to be doing what you're not supposed to do to get some money because you got to survive. They trying to keep you in there even longer.
This is a good point. In prison, I don't want to go too. I'm gonna say this right. There was a point where I got my little reputation not because I was some go, but because I would try to organize guys and fight for things. And there was a time where the younger gang members, young guys, 18, 19, 20, 21, they were trying to get jobs and get in school. But everybody was complaining that they were, causing mischief on the compound. But the warden and them would never allow them to get jobs and go to school, so they wouldn't have no money. So what are they doing? They trying to rob guys on the compound. They fight, and they. That's just one example. You know what I'm saying? What you say when you speak about the money thing, most definitely, because inflation in prison continues to increase. When I first went into the system, a ramen noodle, because that's the most common thing guys eat, was 27 cents. When I left the system, a ramen noodle was 56 cents.
Mm.
But prison pay wages never increases. It was always either when you were in the system, when I was in the system, it was either you make 27 cents, 30 cents, no, 27, 30, or 35. I can't remember, thank God, but it was like those three pay wages. 45 cents means you was balling.
And how many hours do you work a day?
It just depend. We were talking a little. It depends on the job. You might have a sweet job in there where you might work with the counselors and do paperwork. You know what I'm saying? Like basically be a go between the rest of the prisoners and the counselor. You work 8 hours, but you're in an office setting. They do have jobs like that. But then you got, which I've had jobs like that. But then I've had jobs where I'm picking in a field and a guy's on a horse with a 6 shooter, and we start early in the morning when it's cool and the sun comes up and it's hot and the end is not in sight.
Mm.
So it just depends. And job placement is where they put you. It's very close. It's slavery. It's modern day slavery. That's exactly
Mm-hmm.
said it prior. You know what I'm saying? You connected the dots. It's the closest thing to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's deep. I can go, man. The whole setup shows you. You know what I'm saying? What's going on? But let me ask you this, which is a little bit different. Um, but it still applies when it comes to some of these laws. And I'm gonna throw out some random laws so you don't have to pin. You can pick one or pick a different one. Um, the purge law, quote unquote, in Illinois that we probably heard of, maybe. Roe versus Wade. The voting law here in Georgia. We both here in Georgia. The voting law any of these things. What do you think as far as when it comes to what's going on with these laws? You think laws are geared to help people succeed? Like, just what do you see? What's your feeling? Because how old are you?
I'm 27.
You're 27, so you're definitely way younger than me. I
Mm.
definitely older than you by a decade and some change. So we technically different generations. But what's your outlook as far as what's going on, the climate of things, laws going forward, 2023? Just your perspective on that.
I do not know, much about laws except the ones that are being popularized. I think me personally and the black community, we should get more into local laws. You know, the things that actually have an impact on our community. Um, I do vote and I do know about, laws like you said, Roe versus Wade, things like that. Um, if I feel like laws are geared to help people, I mean, I guess they're supposed to be, but if they're not being changed to keep up with modern time, I don't know how they can help people. Um,
Yeah,
we're following laws that are made back, way back when, before most of us were even born. So I don't even know how they can be helping us here in modern times. Um,
what I mean, as far as like we made it through 2020,
Mm-hmm.
2021, I guess it got a little bit better, sort of. I remember a couple times, I know I was waiting for 2021. I was like, oh crap, it's not. But 2022, things are getting better. Monkeypox,
Yeah.
I guess, sort of disappeared. You know, there's still stuff going on, but you think 2023 is going to be better? You think things are going to get better? Or what do you think about the future of society as a whole? I like to ask younger people that question because
I have
you guys are the leaders. It's your time now.
I have great faith in the future. I love the things that are changing, even though I don't understand everything that's, changing. I do love that people are taking a stand and saying we're not going to be disrespected anymore. This is, what we're going to be addressed as, or this is what we're going to do, or this is what we're not going to do. So I have great hope for the future. I love the direction things are going. I'm ready for 2024 so we can get a new president,
Oh,
or maybe get a new president. I don't know. Have a new election, I should say.
I'll just man, that'd be a whole nother show.
Mm,
I don't even know if I should say what I want to say. I'm waiting for 2024 too.
mm.
I'm waiting for 20. Ironically enough, side note about that, they let me vote in 2020, and then Georgia came back and took my voting rights.
Um,
Right. So now I got to go through all this paperwork, and well, maybe not. We'll see. But that was a weird thing. I don't even know why that occurred. But
I also work with this organization who gets former parolees and people who are on probation registered to vote. So as long as you're not on parole or probation, you are able to be registered in Georgia to
do
vote.
you want to throw the information out there for everybody? Anybody from Georgia?
I don't have any information. I'm not prepared. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's all good. I'm gonna try to get that from you, and if I post it, you know what I'm saying, pass it along. But that's good information. Um, I want a couple more questions before we wrap this up. Definitely not gonna keep you up here too long. Um, I always ask our guests if they got a message to the world, or maybe you want to say something you've learned from the podcast, Talking Prison with Tiff. Maybe, whatever it is, this is the time where I give my guests the opportunity to just say whatever they want to say.
A message to the world. I don't know. Be kind. I was not prepared. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, world. um, just be kind. I don't know. I don't have a message.
I don't think that has to be anything else attached to that. I think simple messages, the straight to the point ones are the ones that need to be heard. Like,
Exactly. So be kind.
just be kind, man. Everybody's angry, and
Yeah, you said that. You said when you got out, everybody is so angry. I saw that TikTok.
yeah, it's I drive trucks in the morning, and I'm a principal in the afternoon, evening, and I deal with a lot of personalities on the road and in the school, and it's just, man, everybody's not everybody, but a lot of people are angry and full of anxiety. And I don't know, man. But
Mm.
that's why we should be kind to one another. You don't know what somebody's going through, like for real, for real.
Yeah,
Um,
or what they might do, what they're capable of doing. People
yeah,
are
definitely, especially here in well, no, probably everywhere. Um, Guys, this has been another one. It's live. I caught her off guard a couple of times.
crazy.
That's what we do. We unscripted. We're not coming in here with a script and all that. And I told her I was going to ask some random questions just to get her perspective. Again, thank you, Tiffany. If you want
Yeah.
to check out her podcast, it's called Talking Prison with Tiff. You can follow it. Check it out here on YouTube, or you can check it out on TikTok, Driving with Tiff. Tiff, any closing thoughts, final words before you go?
No, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was very fun. Hopefully, I come back and I'll be prepared next time. And I have a message for the world.
I got you, because I'm definitely gonna ask that probably at the end of the next one too. But you definitely welcome back anytime. Thank you for being a part of this, being a different voice, different perspective, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Till next time, man. Peace and blessings to the world, man. Y'all be safe. Tune in. We'll be back.